Yo, what's going on guys? SpaceKong here. Remember me? That guy who makes videos sometimes, every now and then, when he feels like it. So, I got a crazy amount of messages from a lot of you guys saying that you want me to revamp this build. Revamp, because it's a vampire. I should probably just cut that bit out. You know what? I think I'm just going to leave it there. Yeah. So, the Immortal Vampire tank build is back. And yup, I'm a Nightblade. So here's my fully buffed stats. I did use Warhorn for this buff, but I will show you a buff without Warhorn when I get down to the armor discussion, because the stats will change variations from which monster sets you use. So, first off, you probably noticed that we have 71k max health, which, yeah, is pretty awesome. It could go higher, it could go lower, but, you know, you don't really need this much. It's kind of a bit overkill, but I'll explain why having more health benefits this build. As for the stamina, yep, 17k, and then nearly 16k on a max magicka. And as for the stamina recovery, well, 2k stamina recovery is still pretty nice, and the fact you're a Nightblade, you're going to be using a lot of siphoning strikes, along with enchantments. You're never going to run out of stamina. It's not going to happen. The resistance is still pretty nice. It can go even higher depending on which monster set you choose. So what we will be doing later on is changing the monster sets. You'll be losing about 1k to 2k of max health, and then you'll be hitting 30k of each resistance. Okay, so let's have a look at where we put our points. So we put 64 points into health, and the reason why we want max health is because we're going to be using Bone Shield quite often, a lot, all the time, which is very core to this build. We're a stage 4 vampire because it gives us more defense the lower our health. We're using all stat primary food, and we're using the Serpent Boonstone because it gives us more stamina recovery, because we're going to be needing a very heavy stamina recovery build for this. And you're probably wondering, why would I be a vampire even though I'm a tank and it gives you more damage mitigation the lower your health? And you're probably thinking, oh, but what about fire? Well, because we're going to be using Bone Shield all the time, it's going to be constantly up, and you're going to be having a hefty damage shield. Like any mob, ad, or anything boss, they're not going to get through it in one hit. In fact, it's going to take them quite a while to chip through that. And once they've chipped through that, then they've got the tasty 71k health to get through. And yeah, okay, the 71k health will be vulnerable against fire, but as long as you've got your Bone Shield up constantly, damage shields don't take extra fire damage. So say if you're a vampire and use a Bone Shield, you won't be receiving any extra fire damage. It'll just count as, you know, normal damage. And you're also probably thinking, okay, but what if you run out of stamina? I mean, it's not really going to happen, but say if you do run out of stamina and they start chipping away at your health, once you go below 50% health, your stage 4 vampirism will allow you to take less damage. You also have an ultimate ability, Bolstering Darkness, which gives you a 60% damage mitigation. That stacks with the Vampire Undeath passive, which mitigates 33% damage. So altogether we're up to 93% damage mitigated. And we also have our Dark Shades, which cause Minor Maim, which reduces the enemy's damage dealt by 15%, so you're really not going to be taking much damage. And because you've got so much health, when you go below 50% health, that still leaves you 35k, and you know, a lot of tanks have 35k health, but you're basically going to be invincible. But I'm going to delve more into that at the end of the video when I show you the tutorial of this build. So let's check out the gear I'm using. Starting off with 5 pieces of the Green Pact, we're going to be using stamina recovery on the jewellery, and it's going to be healthy for the max health. We get max health, health recovery, maximum health, and while you have a food buff active, your max health is going to be increased by 2,412 and health recovery by 241. Now, we don't really need the health recovery because we're a vampire, so that's basically non-existent. Plus, we have insane heals. We are a vampire and a Nightblade in one, so yeah, the heals are going to be non-stop. And higher our max health means the higher our Bone Shield. Our next set is 5 pieces of the Plague Doctors. So again, we want it in healthy, and it gives you max health, healing taken, and even more max health, nearly 4k. The reason for this is obviously because the more max health you have means the stronger you are as a vampire, a tank, and obviously you're going to get more heals, and your damage shield is going to be incredible. Our main heal is a vampire ability, which is going to heal us for 20% of our missing health, and because we've got a lot of health, it's going to be insane. So the ideal build for this is to have on the large pieces of armor infused, and on the small pieces you want divines. You can go all infused if you want even more max health, but I mean, come on, 71k, it's a bit overkill, but it still works. Malubeth, okay, now we use 1 to 2 pieces of this. What we want is max health enchantment on all our armor, and it gives us max health, and when we take damage we have a 6% chance to create a beam which steals 5.5k health over 4 seconds. Now it's pretty good. It also gives us major vitality, which increases our healing received by 30%. I mean, you know, not that we need it, but it's a little safety net. It's good. We don't have to have this. If you're starting off with this build, then it would definitely help having a 2-piece. But I usually just keep the 1-piece for the max health, and then I usually swap out the head for Chew Down, which gives us even more resistance. So if we check this out, notice earlier when I said about the buff stats being that I could get up to 30k resistance and lose about 1k max health. Okay, so check this out. And I'm not using the Warhorn for this, by the way. So here we go. We've reached the 30k mark for the resistance. I don't know why I've got a bit of crit resist there. That's just because I got an impen piece. You know, I don't have any transmute stones. So the only stat really we're looking for here is the resistance. All the other stats were unbuffed because I wasn't using any potions or anything like that. I noticed that some of my armor isn't infused or divines, but that's okay. I mean, you know, our stats are still pretty decent, so you could get even better stats than I've got right here. All in all, this is a really fun build. It's going to take a little while to get used to because it's a different way of tanking. It's not necessarily just sort of taunt, hold block, and then a few buffs every now and then. It's very different. I'll show you more about it in a tutorial. So when we get to the one hand and shield, we want it on both bars. The reason why I have 1 Green Pact and 1 Plague Doctor on each of the sword and board, it basically comes down to just a glitch. So if you were to have 1 Plague Doctor sword and 1 shield on one bar, and then 1 Green Pact sword and shield on the other bar, you would lose health because it would unequip and equip your armor back. It wouldn't make sense. You just lose health out of it. So I like to have 1 of each, and it keeps it steady. So yeah, you don't lose any health in between switching bars. So let's check out the skills. We'll start with the back bar so we can buff up first, so you get an idea of the rotation. Okay, so first up we have Mirage, and basically it just gives you major evasion and minor resolve and minor ward, which again makes you more tanky. So increases your dodge chance by 15% and increases your physical and spell resistance by 1320 for 26 seconds. So you don't have to cast this very often, and it's very powerful. Next up we have Leech and Strikes. Now this one is amazing. It's a very cheap skill to use, and you get so much more resources back. So it basically causes your light and heavy attacks you deal to restore 1698 health and 106 stamina for 20 seconds. Now you're going to be using a lot of light and heavy attacks, which again goes towards you never running out of stamina. And I think I probably forgot to mention that we use stamina and magicka absorb enchants on each of our swords. So yeah, along with that, with the light and heavy attacks, yeah, we're never going to run out. Unstoppable. Now this one does cost a fair amount of stamina, but it's worth it, and you get it back in about 2 hits anyway. So basically this grants you major resolve and major ward, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5280 for 23 seconds. It also grants you immunity to knockbacks and disabling effects for 5 seconds, and for each heavy piece of armor worn, the duration of this is increased by 5%. So yeah, it's a very powerful ability. Next up we have Structured Entropy. Now this one is just basically a passive skill, because at the moment, I mean it's going to level up even more, but at the moment it's giving me 6% extra max health just for having it slotted, and that's only level 2, so it can go even higher than that. In fact, when you reach level 4, the maximum is 8%. Next up, we have Mass Hysteria. Now, we really don't need this skill at all for any use. The only reason we have it is because for each shadow ability you have slotted, it grants you 3% extra max health. But alternatively, if you're happy with having a lot of max health and you're comfortable with the build, you can swap this out for Inner Fire, so you have a ranged taunt, which is what I usually do anyway. Now for the ultimate, we have Aggressive Warhorn. Now this grants a buff to yourself and all your allies, so it's pretty amazing and it's very, very tanky. So you basically get an extra 10% max health, magicka and stamina for 30 seconds, and your allies and yourself gain Major Force, increasing your critical damage done by 15% for 9.5 seconds. So yeah, you're going to be granting, I mean you're not going to be doing much damage anyway, but you're going to be granting your DPS a lot more damage, and also they're going to have more health, magicka and stamina, as well as yourself. So it's just an all-round good ability for everyone. Okay, so onto the juicy front bar. First up we have your main heal, Invigorating Drain. Now this is why you're a vampire, because for each second you restore 22% of your missing health and generate 5 ultimate every 1 second. So you'll be able to sustain your Warhorn, and on top of that, because you have 71k max health, 22% of your missing max health when you have not much health left, say I don't know 10k, is going to be massive. You're going to get a huge heal, and I will be demonstrating that later on. But essentially you can go from having 2k health back up to full in about 4 or 5 seconds, easily. Refreshing Path. Now this is a shadow ability, so you will be getting your extra 3% health, and that is why I use that. But it's also got its own uses. Not only does it grant your allies extra healing, although it's not much healing at all, but it still helps. And it also gives you Major Expedition, which increases your movement speed by 30%. So although tanks are very slow moving and have to reserve their stamina, if you use this constantly in between mobs and boss battles and stuff, you're going to be moving fairly quick, and you're not going to be losing any of that sweet stamina that you need. Next up we have Bone Surge. Now you're going to be hitting this basically every 5 to 6 seconds. What it does is it surrounds yourself with a whirlwind of bones, absorbing damage equivalent to 36% of your max health. Now that is huge. And because we also put points into Bastion, we're going to get, I don't know, say 15% onto that. So we're going to be hitting around 28k-ish of a damage shield. Now that's a lot. No boss is going to hit for 28k. And in between casting this Bone Shield, we're going to be using 2 to 4 light to heavy attacks. And that's basically going to more than fill our stamina up, like more than what we spent on the damage shield itself. So next up we have Dark Shades. Now we don't need these for the damage at all, and their duration is 20.7 seconds, which again is really awesome considering how much it actually costs to cast. But what you need them for is the minor maim that they inflict when they attack their opponent. So Minor Maim reduces the opponent's damage dealt by 15% for 4 seconds, and the fact that you have 2 shades, say if you're against a boss and each of them are attacking, it's going to be sustained indefinitely. All you need to do is just recast that ability on the boss every 20 seconds. Pierce Armor. Now this is our melee taunt, and we don't need the other one because the other one just gives us more resistance, and let's face it, we really don't need any more resistance. So this ability is to assist our DPS, causing Major Fracture and Major Breach to the boss, reducing their resistance by 5.2k. Now last up we have Bolstering Darkness. This is our oh shit ability. We don't really need to use it often, but just in case, basically it's going to conjure a ring of shadows, blah 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 blah. And the part that we need is where it reduces our damage taken and our allies' damage taken by 30%, and it also reduces your own damage taken by an additional 30%. So yeah, we're going to be taking 60% less damage, and the fact that we're a vampire and have our other ability which basically reduces damage, it's going to add up to 93% damage reduction. Now when you have all these abilities active, you really need to be a special kind of snowflake if you're going to die. Now I'll brush through the champion points fairly quick because we don't really need to get into it too much. They're pretty self-explanatory. So we don't have any over here. We've got 44 into Tenacity, we have 56 into Arcanist, and then 56 into Mooncarf. You don't want to go above 60 really, because you really won't be getting much back because of the diminishing returns. Next up we have Shadow Ward. Reason why we have this one is because you're a tank and it reduces the cost of blocking. We have 76 Blessed, Elfborn. Elfborn's a really good one because it also gives you crit heals. So when we use our Vampiric Drain, we could also get insane heals on top of our already insane heals. So it'd be like double insane heals. Besides that, we don't really need any more points. That's why I went over 60 on that, because we really don't need any more. Precise Strikes, I use this for the Siphoning Strikes ability, because that is a stamina ability, and it also gives us more healing. Next up, we have 56 into Ironclad. We have 50 into Spell Shield. They're pretty self-explanatory, because, you know, we're a tank and we need resistance and damage mitigation. And then we have 57 into Bastion, which also gives us even more powerful damage shield. We have 50 into Armor Focus, and that is all the points. So earlier when I said about the Bastion being 15% and then us having 28k heals, it actually works out that it's about 30k, but obviously if I put 30k in the title and some people didn't get 30k for the damage shield, then they're going to be a little bit disappointed. So I put it at 28k, but yeah, it does go up to 30k. Okay, so let's see how low we can get our health, and then how high we can get our health, or how fast we can get it back. Right, okay, so wait for my health to get low. Okay, yeah, I think that's good enough. Right, let's see how fast we can heal up. So shield up, and then heal. So that was just under 16k health a second, which was still pretty decent for a 3-second tick. So we didn't get any crit heals in that demo, but when you do get crit heals, it'll be around 20k. I mean, not that it really matters, you know, going up by 45k health in just 3 seconds, you know. I mean, that's pretty impressive as it is. So here we go. For the tutorial, flip to your back bar, use Mirage, Siphoning Strikes, and Unstoppable. Switch over, use your Dark Shades, and then there you go. You've got your Taunt, you've got your Shield, and every time you use your Shield, make sure you use, I don't know, about 2 to 4 light to heavy attacks. Just so you get your stamina back. I mean, not that you really need to use it for that, but it just helps, you know, so you don't drop below. So to test this out, I will use up all my stamina, or as much as I can. And then, heavy attack. Shield up. Use your light attacks. So your stamina's going up. You're still maintaining your shield, and even if you have, like, I don't know, 10, 20 mobs on you, your shield's not going to go down that quick. You can still sustain. And the reason why I use Malubeth as well, if you're beginning with this tank build, it's just an extra heal tick, you know, whilst you're getting used to the rotation. You know, it's a different way of tanking, so have that to start with, or you could just go straight for having one piece of that and then using the chew down, which will give you the extra resistance. This build is so easy to use, not to mention it's pretty fun. And that's it for the Immortal Vampire Nightblade tank build for the Clockwork City update. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and found it useful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, you know, all that good shit. But apart from that, have yourselves an amazing day, and I'll see you next time. Peace!